economic system is based on what we call capitalism. And the basic feature or function or underlying principle of capitalism is that you get what you earn. You know, if you work and you earn a wage, you get the fruit from that labor. And so we're raised all of our lives with this mindset about working in order to get, and getting what we earn or what we deserve. And God's kingdom is the opposite of that. Because in God's kingdom, we don't want what we deserve. We don't want justice. We don't want the wages of our actions. We want mercy and grace. And mercy means we don't get what we deserve. Grace is another word that I think maybe we struggle to understand because it's such a broad thing. The underlying definition of grace is favor and blessing. I want to talk about two aspects of grace this morning. Grace is a noun, the thing that we get, and grace is a verb, the thing that we do. Let's start off with what we get. We all receive God's gifts because of His grace and mercy. And the key point I want to make here in this first part is that since we have received God's grace, we are to be ministers of or givers of God's grace to others. Here's the scripture basis for that from 1 Peter. As every one of us have received the gift, let us minister the same to one another as good distributors of the manifold grace of God. Every one of us have received the gift, the grace of God. So he said, now every one of us should be distributors of that grace to one another. See, grace means, as a noun, having favor, receiving gifts. Let me give you some scriptural examples here. Even Jesus, it says the child Jesus grew and he became strong in spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. Now that was true for Jesus. If that was true for Jesus, who came here leaving his glory and his status and everything behind, so he came here and lived to walk in a human body, and in order for him to minister and to be a blessing to others, he relied upon the grace, the gifts of God that were bestowed upon him. Now, if that was true for him, then that has to be true for us as well. So this is for us too. Jesus said, whoever loves me will be loved by the Father. God so loved that he gave. I think one of the most important things in that verse, two great attributes about God that are essential. He's a lover and he's a giver. Those two are connected, loving and giving. Now the opposite of love, too often we think of as hatred, but the opposite of love, if love is giving, then the opposite of giving is taking, and taking is rooted upon people who are selfish. So what I want to propose, the opposite of love is selfishness. If the basis of love is giving, then the epitome of selfishness is taking. And that's why we have so many problems in the world today, because the basic root cause of all sin is selfishness. They don't love God, don't love one another. That's why the Lord's commandments are essential. What's the great commandment? Love the Lord, love people. Because it's about giving. Loving is about giving. And grace means getting these gifts, these things that we don't deserve, because of his love and the mercy that he has, so that we don't get what we deserve. For example, Bryce, do you know how many Christmas gifts you deserve this year? How hard have you worked this year? Do you take the garbage out? Do you do the dishes? Do you clean your room? Do you obey mom all the time? All right, you don't deserve anything. That's true for all of us. But if we as parents and grandparents give to our kids, whether they deserve it or not, that's grace. That's a manifestation of our love. Whoever loves, gives. We love our children, our grandchildren, and we give. And each one of us that have received, it said since all of us have received these great gifts, we're to be givers. One of the things I've consciously made a habit of doing when I go into the hospitals, I've done this for years, is to say thank you to nurses, doctors, technicians for what they do. And I tell them that you are just as much a minister of God's grace as the one who stands in the pulpit. In fact, in a scriptural sense, we are all ministers of God's grace. Now, I've been called and trained or prepared to teach and give the word. But the most important thing that I do as a minister is to give grace. A gift of maybe knowledge and some understanding, but a gift of love and caring and compassion for the people around us. I believe that's why this church is so strong and successful, because the grace of God, the love of God, the ministry of that grace doesn't just come from one person in the front. It's you loving her, it's you treating her, it's you praying for them, and it's you giving this one a hug. And it's when the body embraces that and they minister to one another. And so our first calling is we've received from God His grace and His gifts. We're to love and minister that grace to our family, our church spiritual family. And then number two, we're to minister that grace to those around us in the world. And I've had some wonderful responses when I talk to nurses like Maggie or Linda here. Thank you for what you do, because the majority of them, and maybe all of them, do it because God has put something in their hearts to love, to care, to help meet the needs, to encourage, to be a blessing to those who are in need. That's what ministry is about. And we've received that gift of God's grace, and so He's called us to share that with one another. And that's not true not just of doctors and nurses, but each one of you, whether you're a secretary, whether you're a truck driver, whether you're retired, if you're a grandma or grandpa, an aunt or an uncle. One of your primary duties and major ministries after being saved and forgiven of your sin and restored into the family of God is to be God's representative and a distributor of that grace to the people around you. One of my favorite songs, I remember Linda and I singing when we were young teenagers singing in the choir, and we sang a song, "Make me a blessing. Out of my life, may Jesus show. Make me a blessing so that others can grow and be encouraged." Too often, the focus of our prayers is, Lord, bless me, Lord, bless me, Lord, bless me. But God, and He does, but God doesn't bless us just so that we can be edified and glory in what we've received. God blesses us so that we can be a channel of that blessing. We're blessed to be a blessing. I was tempted to sing a song I wrote this morning, and maybe I will someday. I wrote it, 45 years ago. I will be a blessing everywhere I go. God gave me abundant life, but it might overflow. I will be a blessing, all the world will see the love of God through Jesus Christ flowing out from me. I realized early on, God blesses us to be a blessing. God gives us His grace so that we might show and distribute that grace to others around us. Every one of you are a minister of God's grace just as much as the man who stands behind the pulpit. Let me give you some individual examples. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Why? Because he was a perfect man? No, he had a drinking problem. Moses found grace in God's sight. Why? Because he was this wonderful, perfect man? No, he killed an Egyptian soldier and hid his body in the sand and run off. When God finally called Moses at the burning bush and said, I want to send you to be my representative, and Moses, knowing his background, lacking confidence in his worthiness to be God's representative, said, God, how will I know, how will anybody know that I have found grace in your sight? God said, you have found grace in my sight. In spite of what you've done, God said, my grace is upon you. Moses said, how can I know that? And here's God's answer, and this is true today. God said, you can know it. Here's the way you can know that you have grace in my sight. Because you can be assured that I'm going to go with you. I'm going to be there beside you. I'm going to work in you and through you. And I'm going to demonstrate my divine presence in your life. All of us can look back at some point in our life where something happened. God answered a prayer. God spared us from death. God healed us or somebody in our family. And He's done some miracle in our life that had to be God. Okay, there was people that pulled Tom out of the car. There's people there doing CPR. There's a man there that put paddles on his chest and shocked him back to his heart beating again. But I guarantee you there's a whole lot of people who've done CPR. There's a whole lot of people who put the paddles on somebody's chest and they didn't revive. Or if they did revive, they weren't completely whole and normal and restored. In fact, when the nurse came that last day to do Tom's cognitive test, she had 20 questions. He got the first 19, zip, 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 and she was pretty amazed. And I could tell she got to the last question, and she said, spell the world backwards, Steve. Yeah, see? You don't have to be dead to struggle with that question. I thought, I'd have trouble with that one. And she said, that's okay, you did wonderful. And she stood there and tears kind of run down her eyes. I went over, kind of put my arm on her shoulder, and I said, you don't see this very often, do you? And she said, never, never have I seen somebody fully restored back to absolute 100% normal. You need some kind of experience in that life. We have several of them in this church. Dan's a walking miracle. Winnie's a miracle. Matt Hundley's a miracle. Jim Bauer's a miracle. Look back in your life at something that happened that you know was God, that He was there. We don't feel Him all the time. We just get little God moments. Or Tracy puts a picture of something on Facebook. And it's like a God moment, and you know it was Him. This is how we know we have favor, because He's with us. And God told Moses, because of this, you will be separated. You'll be different from other people. You'll be special. Not weird. I know too many weird Christians, but that's not what we're supposed to be. Separated, not in the weird category, into the special category. To where people say, there's something about you in a good way. You're different than other people. He said, you'll be special. You'll be different from all the other people on the earth. See, all of us are sinners who've been saved by grace. Where sin abounded, grace did come in and superabound. We have redemption through His blood, and the forgiveness of sins according to the riches of his grace. Grace. Everything we get from God comes through grace. This song, Amazing Grace, is an important one. It's the foundation of everything that we get from God. Titus, the grace of God brings us salvation. The grace of God brings it. Ephesians, Paul said, by the grace we're saved through faith. Not of ourselves, not our own works, didn't deserve it, not capitalism, not work it, earn it, and get it. Grace. Grace. It's the gift of God. We were all sinners. We were all saved by his grace. And we can be thankful for that, knowing that God has bestowed upon us this amazing blessing that we should be called the children of God. Where sin abounded, grace more superabounded. We receive the abundance of grace and the gift of righteousness. We are justified by his grace. And we're heirs. We're going to inherit eternal life. Right now, we've got the promise and we're holding on to it, but there's going to be an award day when we get the fulfillment of all of that. Here's the second part of grace. We've received it. That's a noun. We've received the gift of grace, noun. But grace is also used as a verb. Like sometimes you'll hear people say, they graced us with their presence, or they graced us with this gift, as a verb. Grace is a noun and we receive it, but for God to give it and for us to distribute it, it's a verb. And here's Paul's admonition to the church at Corinth. Walk gracefully. Walk in that grace. With godly sincerity and with purity. Live your life with godly sincerity and a purity and a wholesomeness about our lives. Not with fleshly or earthly wisdom, but by the grace of God. Live and walk in this world. We've received his grace here in this life, and we're to distribute it as long as we're here. But there's coming a day when all of those things are going to be made fullness in our lives. But while we're here, we're to receive his gift and be distributors of it. Here's a couple examples. Number one, in your talk. You can give grace to the people around you by the words that you say. Colossians, Paul told the church, let your speech be filled with grace. Let your words, your conversation, the things you say to people be filled with grace, seasoned with salt. Now, I was going to bring a salt shaker and I forgot, but how do we put salt on our food? Well, I'll show you how I put salt on food. I don't take the lid off, though. One time I was at, let's see, what was it called? King's Food Host, I think, on University as a teenager. And I went to put salt on my hamburger, and somebody had unscrewed the lid so that it was just barely sitting there. And when I poured it on my hamburger, the whole thing dumped onto, I had a pile of salt, a mountain of salt on my burger. Now, I like salt, but I don't like a pile of salt on my food. Paul says, season your speech with salt. A little here, a little there. Sometimes more, sometimes less. I like more. So that you may know how to answer, speak, or talk to people. Don't overdo it. Don't browbeat people. Don't pour out the whole thing. Season a little salt. A little here, a little there. Sprinkle the grace of God everywhere you go. Look for opportunities to say and do things that encourage and lift up people. You know why I put salt on my food? The number one reason?
Tastes better.
I think it tastes better. Good. I like her. I think it tastes better. It brings out, enhances the flavor. Now, if you get too much, all you taste is the salt, and that's not good. If I give you a spoonful of salt, you're not going to like that. But if I sprinkle a little, see, the goal of seasoning with grace is to make people enhance just a little bit what's already there and make it stand out a little bit. Here's another verse. Paul says, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. I enjoy music. I have gospel music on in my car when I can, or Christian radio or tapes or things. I love music because it encourages me. And so let your words distribute God's grace. And follow it up with actions here. This is from Colossians. Singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord, and in all that you do, in word or deed, do it in the name of the Lord, giving thanks to God. So, giving out grace involves two things: your words and your actions, what you do. So, say things that make people feel better. Tracy, you look really nice today. I like the way you got your hair fixed on the sides there. It just,
Thank you.
those curls there. Does that make you feel sad?
No.
Oh, you're not mad about that? Okay. Compliment one another. A simple little phrase can encourage somebody and make them feel better. Or sometimes if you're going through the line, and if, I don't remember who it was last week, I said to somebody, I like that shirt, your outfit today. Black and white really makes your hair and your face stand out. Give some compliments to people. Now, don't overdo it so they think you're being mushy or, oh, careful, or Tim might get upset. So season it, a little here and a little there, or even like that, actions. That little hug you just gave there, just that little shoulder. That's why I like when I came to this church 29 years ago. It's hard for me to believe it's been that long. I told people when I came here, I warned them, I said, I want to warn you, I'm a hugger. I believe in hugging people. My wife tells me sometimes, Jim, you need to be careful. If you hug women, you don't want them to get the wrong idea. And I said, Lynn, if I hug them because I love and appreciate sincerity, I think they're going to get the right idea. A woman knows the difference between groped and being hugged out of appreciation. Here's why I became a hugger. Some of you have heard this story years ago. When Linda and I were in our early 20s, I was going down to my mom's parents' farm down by Hudson to have supper with my grandpa and grandma, my mom and dad, and Linda and I. And as I turned at the corner there, Strayer Seed Farm used to be, going down this gravel road to the west, I soon caught up with some dust and realized I was following a hearse down this gravel road. And so I hung back and took my time. Didn't think a lot of it till that hearse turned in the driveway to my grandpa's house. I followed that hearse up to my grandpa's front door. I jumped out quick and I ran inside the house. My mom and dad were there. I said, Mom, what happened? And she said, Grandpa Shorty had a heart attack and died. I said, where is he? She said, he's in his bedroom. I walked into the bedroom and he was laying on there on the bed. Looked just like he always did when he was sleeping there. And I stood there and looked at him and I said, Grandpa Shorty, I loved you so very much. We fished together, we played cards together, we laughed together, we played dominoes together, we played cribbage. We had wonderful years. And with all those marvelous memories and experiences we had together, I don't think I ever once told you with my mouth, I love you. Now you know that I did, and maybe I blurted out somewhere, but I don't remember making an issue, a point of it. And I walked away from that room thinking, Lord, I will never, ever again let somebody slip through my life that that I love and appreciate without telling them and letting them know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I love you, Steve. Very much. And that night before I left, I walked up to my grandma and I gave her the warmest hug I'd ever given her. And I kissed her on the cheek and I said, Grandma, I love you very, very much. And I made up my mind that night, from that moment on, I'm not going to hesitate to hug and share and love the people that I care about. I want them to know it. I don't want anybody else to slip through my life and wonder, did I tell them? Words and deeds. Share it. Paul said, I thank God always on your behalf for the grace which has been given to you by and because of Jesus Christ. We're to grow in grace. We're to grow in knowledge. God's grace is sufficient. His strength is perfected in our weakness. We're not perfect. Noah was a drunk. Abraham lied about his wife. Moses killed a man. If you look at all these people in the Bible, Paul was there to help stone Stephen, egging them on. God takes people with mistakes and shady past and failures and faults, and he blesses them and he equips them to go out and be the ministers of his grace. Freely you have received, freely give it and pass it out to others. Come boldly to a throne of grace so we can obtain mercy. God loved us. He's given us everlasting comfort and peace and a good hope through grace. Abound in faith and knowledge and all diligence and in your love toward people, and see that you superabound in grace also. I've given you a bunch of scriptures here. We've got it, and we're to pass it out. You know, I remember one time talking with a couple, and a bunch of things were going on and being said and done. And I said, well, I don't know that I can solve all of these problems. I said, but I took a piece of paper and let me do this quick here. I said, I want you to take this piece of paper, put it on your refrigerator, look at this every day, and live this out, and I believe it'll fix a whole lot of problems in your life. Can you read that, Tim? What does it say? Be nice. Just be nice. Be nice to one another. Say good things. Do charitable things. Freely we receive God's grace. You know, I hope each one of you take this message not as some kind of a rebuke, because you're good at this. Our church does good at that. But I want to say, hurrah, thank you, let's keep it up. I want to acknowledge what you're doing is a great thing and superabound in it. Keep doing it. Here's why, because we don't have it all yet, but in the ages to come, God is going to show the riches of his grace and his kindness toward us through Jesus Christ. See, the best is yet to come. Each one of us have received the gift. I started with this, I'm going to close with it. We've received this gift, so minister that grace to one another as stewards, as distributors of the grace of God. See, grace as a verb. We've received God's grace as a noun. The second part is demonstrate God's grace as a verb. Doing things, saying things. So, grace as a verb means this: to confer dignity, to transfer a sense of worth and honor to that person. Say things that make people feel good. Jay, I'm thrilled. I'm so happy you're here today, and even in Sunday school, you were talking about praying and depending on the Lord. That stirred up a sense of pride in me that even in the midst of your workplace, you're acknowledging the Lord, not just as Savior in your heart, but as the director, the planner of your whole life. That's an awesome thing. Makes me very proud of you. Say things to people that encourage them and lift them up. Don't be, that was kind of uplifting, wasn't it, Jay? What if I said, I don't like your dirty beard, I wish you'd get rid of that? See, now that's not gonna make you feel better, is it?
It's part of me.
I don't mind your beard at all. I think it makes you look very dignified, and I've seen you without it. I like it. You look good. Say things to people that encourage them. Say things that are an upper, not a downer. Don't be a downer. I guess that could be my next phrase. Don't be a downer. Make people attractive, you know? Winnie, I love your smile and your faith in the Lord, you know? Even when I said that, she's got that nice little chuckle. Been through a lot of things in her life. Loves the Lord, loves her family. And to me, it's a joy to see you sit here every Sunday when you can come. I appreciate that. Thank you. Say and do things that encourage people. Be a blessing. See, I guess that's the bottom line, what I ask you today. We've received God's grace. Say, Lord, help me to be a minister of that grace. So look for some opportunity today to transfer some worth and value in people, to make them feel more valuable, to make them feel more special, more accepted. Say and do things that make people feel more attractive. Barb, I love your faithfulness and your steadfastness to the Lord. I'm just so impressed when you have all your family over there, and here's all of these people there, and you guys are fixing a meal together and celebrating together, and you're taking dialysis 3 times a week. You're putting yourself through all of that so that you can be here to minister and love your family. That's a pretty awesome thing. It's a great sacrifice. You give because you love and care about your family. Thank you for that. You are special. You are a lovely neighbor and lady in my life. Thank God for you. Lord, I thank you for this day. Help each one of us to say and do the things that are a blessing to others. You've blessed us. Freely we've received. Freely let us give.